Hello, I'm going to be reading Family Relations regarding the parental denigration, boomerangs versus alienates, parent-child closeness, reciprocity, and well-being using multiple informants. Now, if you saw my previous video, I gave pretty non-conventional advice regarding just moving on with your life for most sorts of situations. Um, Basically, don't sweat it. uh, it's interesting even within the community, the parental alienation community of the dads that are fighting and super angry at the system. Is that on one end they'll say the mother is brainwashing the children, and then on the other side of things they'll say and the kids will hate them when they grow up. And that's what we see in a lot of examples, or when they figure out the situation. So, that question started coming in my mind. I was like, well, what studies are there about the adult kids of parental alienation? And even when I look at all of the YouTube channels and the various interviews of people, the majority are women. And usually they're alienated from their father. And so there also is a component of um, gender aspects, and there is not as much discussion in terms of the adult. And of course, you can say there's sort of correlation, and that goes into a much larger discussion. But the point is, when you're in these sorts of situations, and when you're with courts that are just absolutely corrupt, and I mean, it was the Garza story where he had like 43 false child abuse claims against him. The judges aren't doing anything. The judges often just disregard the law because it's family court. What are you going to do about it? You have no recourse, and I don't even know if you're going to be spending that money for that. And then, by the time you go through all the court layers, even if you do contest it, not to mention you're pissing off the family court judge for other issues, or other things that they need to deal with. Your kids are 18 by then, and also you just wasted, in his case, $700,000 in court fees. And how much of opportunity cost of you just using that energy and the emotional energy and all that drain into actually being a productive man and making a better future. So I talked about that more in my other video about looking at it from the long game. And this actually just this supports it. So what I'll do is, I think, let me see if I can zoom in more. So here, to assess parental denigration, parental demeaning each other to or in front of their children, and whether denigration is one-sided or reciprocal, related to distance or closeness between parents and children, and associated with measures of children's well-being. Conclusion, or here's background: the parental alienation hypothesis argues that denigration is one-sided and distances children from their denigrated parent. Parental conflict research suggests that denigration is reciprocal and distances children from both parents, particularly the more frequently denigrating parent. So it's actually the other way around. And this kind of goes, so when you are being alienated against, right? And this is the fear. The fear is, oh, I'm going to lose them. But at the same time, everyone's like, especially with all the YouTube videos about this, and seeing the harm that is being created by this, like, if you're just a solid dude, they're gonna figure it out. Now, of course, you hear certain stories. Everybody's different, because there could be legitimately just a loser dad, and especially when it comes to bitterness, and we're going to be coming through this as well. And I think I showed that picture, of the whale. You could be a very embittered man in the future, not taking advantage or using the good opportunity to, with all that free time, and just become embittered and just be a victim, for whatever 13 or whatever years, and just being embittered and wasting all your time about woe is me and playing the victim card. nope. If you, the other thing is everyone realizes is nobody cares. if you haven't noticed already, nobody cares that you're parentally alienated. They might go, oh yeah, it's too bad, but they will never really quite understand. And the meme of Karen taking the kids. I mean, it's just like, everybody is saying, and just like, the ex-wife who's still embittered, about whatever sort of abuses she received. It's like everybody's like, well, yeah, that sucks, but 10 years later, or 5 years later, are they still the same embittered person? It's like, dude, you got to just move on. What do they say? Shit happens. Shit happens. Move on. And make the best of your life, and whatever. If you have that anger, use it for something productive, to make the best life possible. Anyway, make more babies. That's, maybe I'm going to pull up this picture actually, which kind of illustrates the point. Let me see here. I'm going to block this. So this, I'm going to pull up. So he was really in, Alec Baldwin was embroiled in a parental alienation sort of case. And let's see if I can just... My God, I can't even... I got the pictures here, but I want to get it in a JPEG format. Okay, so this was super publicized and very public. It was with Kim Basinger, and I think he's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think he had 7. So this isn't even the latest photo. Kim Basinger, I think they had 1 child, and so that whole parental alienation thing and the whole the phone call was made public. But generally they seem to be on whatever good terms or whatever. But he moved on with his life. He couldn't just stay embittered, and I mean, he's obviously wealthy, so he's able to do both. Fight for whatever the claim, and while at the same time, starting a new family. In the case of us, normal people who can't do both, you have limited time, you have limited resources. You're going to have to pick and choose. And so between, this is a hard thing to say, but between the two of them, this is obviously the much better option. So you can either be this, or I'm not going to show the whale. You can be an embittered, overweight old man, in which case you definitely, no one will want, and who, so embittered, no one will want to be around you, including your alienated kid when they turn older. So you just gotta have to move on. And statistically speaking, here, even it's the boomerang effect, and hopefully this data can help with your fear that you'll lose them. Yeah, if you are a loser and you waste your life being embittered, yeah, you're definitely gonna lose. You're gonna lose everybody. But if you are, if you move on with your life and you have a great, beautiful life, and you become a great person, and you become a much better person out of that sort of situation, the constant denigration, and the truth will come out, and that likely will have a much more impact. And actually, like, once again, this constant denigration actually will backfire. So Normatively, denigration appears to boomerang, not alienate. Children consistently report feeling less close to parents who denigrate more than to parents who are the target of denigration. So it's the opposite. It's the opposite of what the theory says of what most people fear. Now, this is for adult children. Obviously, we know what happens for the young children, but it's just like you gotta just the young children obviously are going to repeat whatever their parents says because they're trapped by developmental issues. So results: parental denigration was measured reliably over time and between siblings. Denigration was highly reciprocal, linked to children feeling less close to both parents, particularly the one denigrating more often, and associated with a variety of measures of ill-being. Results held both within and between siblings and in the 1% cases of unilateral denigration. Look, 1%. So be that 1%. It really, you can speak truth, but no, like I said, nobody wants to be around somebody bitter like it happened 10 years ago or whatever. Implications: parents and the professionals who work with them must recognize the damage denigration does to denigrating parents' own relationship with their children. Findings also raise questions about alienation claims, which appear to be rare exceptions to the boomerang rule. So don't sweat it. Now, yes, for the 0 to 18 years age, will you lose them? Yeah, probably. That's just the court system. But what do you do with that free time? So here, this talks about here. You can pause it. I'm gonna just let me see if I can make it bigger so you can pause the screen and read through it if you want. So here's the parental alienation hypothesis. Now, I don't know if the hypothesis says into adulthood. We certainly see the damage, and we certainly see, generally across the board, everybody who's interviewed, they don't take it very well toward the parent who was alienating, and it ends up manifesting itself in other ways until they come to realize this. Now, this is 648 undergraduates. Here's another page. So an online survey, I think they use like this Amazon service that you pay people to do it. College students and their siblings, and then I guess a special group of twins. Adults, remember, these are adults. So what you see in front of you, what you see them, come on, kids are, they're impressionable. So here's their method. They did certain tests. Parental child closeness, depressive. So yes, does it harm the child? Of course. Does it harm the person when they grow up? Of course. Of course it does. But once again, if you're being alienated against and the legal system is screwing you over and the children, what can you do about it? It's just, and the children aren't going to blame you for not fighting the 43 false sexual abuse allegations and going $700,000 in debt. It's perfectly reasonable to move on, especially if you build a beautiful family. Dude, if you had $700,000 and all that time frame, I think you could do that. But anyway, so yeah, here's their online sample. It's the Amazon Mechanical Turk. But remember, all of these are adults. So here is the data. When we get to the graph. So, okay, so here is kind of the correlations. Now, remember, correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation, but you can start seeing some patterns. But I think really what the main takeaway is this. This is the astonishing part. So one is the denigration by mother, And then number 2 is their attachment to the mother. So here I'm going to zoom into here. Okay, so as the frequency or severity, however way they measured the denigration by mother, is increased, there is a negative correlation with their attachment to the mother. There is a negative correlation to the involvement of the mother, and then there's also less of a correlation with closeness of mother. So this 1 means there's a direct correlation. -1 means there's a direct inverse correlation. And then, this is somewhere in the middle. All right, so now we get to the father. So not surprisingly, in most cases where the mother is slamming on the father, there is a correlation of also the father denigrating the mother. It goes both ways. It's not direct, but there is some correlation. But then here, now you start, this is where it gets interesting, where it goes counter. The attachment to the father, the involvement of the father, closeness with the father, you can see it's almost a zero correlation, which means the mother can insult as much as she wants toward the father, and hurt her own relationship, because remember, people just don't want to be around bitter people, and bitter women is probably, I mean, they're both equally bad, but bitter women who just constantly talk about their ex-husband and what they did 5, 12, 13, 15 years ago. Oh my God, every other healthy woman is saying, oh my God, get over it. Get over it. Move on with your life. And it just gets old. It gets old in general. Okay, anything in life. It doesn't have to be the ex. Any situation, you getting jailed. If there was Martin Shkreli, or whatever person who went to jail, or Dinesh D'Souza, and all he just kept talking about was how they were wrongfully arrested and spent, whatever amounts in jail, just constantly over like 5 to 10 years to 15 years and still going on. That's going to hurt the relationship, and no one wants to be around that. And it's like, dude, you're nuts. But it has absolutely or almost no correlation to how the children see their father. So it's like, come on, they get it. Everybody gets it. The embittered woman, do they do people really take it? Somebody who's embittered for that long, usually the case is they think they're nuts, but they're not going to take their constant accusations really seriously. This is in general, and your adult children aren't going to be any different. And here's the data that shows it right here. This is kind of the freeing part. Be free. Don't worry. Let her denigrate you. Let her come at it. Don't worry about it. It has, they'll come for the adult children. They'll come to know the truth, and it just backfires. Okay. And it has no effect on you. What's more important here, because there's no correlation, is you as a man, you as a person. And here, now let's look at it the other way around. So the higher the because you see here, there's less, usually it's the there's a much higher correlation, right? So if the father is denigrating the mother, in all likelihood, the mother's also reciprocating that as well. But this is where the data gets a little bit weird, because so here you can see it certainly does hurt the relationship. There is some correlation. So once again, don't be bitter. That you feel like you need to badmouth their mother, no matter what she's done. It's just like, it just gets old. So just whatever, move on. Make it so you're thankful. Make it so you're thankful. Be like, you know what? I'm thankful for her leaving me. I'm thankful for her. Yes, it sucks for you guys, and she needs to answer to the harm she's done to you guys, but I wouldn't be having this beautiful family if it weren't for her without Karen taking the kids, so to speak. And then here, in terms of how, oh no, I'm sorry. You know what? I got it backwards, because this is actually how it affects the relationship with the mother. So with the father here, interesting here. Look at this. The closeness with the father, it almost, oh no, it's 0.26. So I don't know what that means. Is the more denigrating the father is, the more close they are with the children, because that's not a negative correlation, it's a positive. And then of course you can see here it does hurt the attachment and then the involvement a little bit, but not as bad as it does for the woman. In terms of how it ends up affecting, now this is where there does certainly seem to be a correlation. So the more that the father does denigrate, the worse the relationship becomes with the mother. But when you're looking at this kind of data here, because there's such a high correlation of the mother denigrating the father, it's more likely that the father's that the mother's denigration is having more of an effect than the actual father's denigration, because of these corollary factors. Remember, correlation does not mean causation, but still, generally, fathers it's just not a good look. Men in general complaining about all the wrongs done to you, just yeah, it just doesn't work. It's not a good look. All right, now, yes, in terms of, they did a study regarding siblings. It seemed to correlate between the siblings. In terms of how it affected their health, yes, of course. There certainly is correlation, especially regarding, parental conflict and depression, anxiety symptoms, satisfaction with life. So you can be a place of peace, of forgiveness, of moving on. I think of Joseph in the Bible. He spent 13 years in prison. I think it was from 17 to 30 years old before he became second in command. And how many times things went wrong and unjustly for him. But you gotta just keep pushing forward. There is injustice, and the ultimate injustice occurring against Jesus Christ. But God can turn what was meant for evil. So what Joseph said, what you have meant for evil, God has meant for good, so that, some more can be saved or something like that, so that more people can be saved. And what better way to say that when you make more babies? Make more babies. Okay, we are... So let's get to the implications. What are they saying? Implications of practice and research. The present results hold several important implications for practice and research. Perhaps most importantly, no support was found for the alienation hypothesis among mothers or fathers, married or divorced families in self or cross-sibling reports, or in group or individual level analysis. Results pointed in the opposite direction of alienation predictions. In what appears to be a boomerang effect, denigration clearly is more strongly related to emotional distance in children's relationship with the parent who does the more frequent denigrating than to the parent who is more frequently the target of denigration. This holds important implications for parents and practitioners who work with them by providing empirical evidence that putting down a co-parent hurts one's own parent-child relationship, not the co-parents. Another important implication is that although alienation may occur, the burden of scientific proof is on proponents of alienation. If an expert wishes to claim that an individual case is an exception to the boomerang rule, that expert needs to demonstrate how and why an exception to the rule has occurred. More basically, it is clear that the alienation is not occurring at the frequency some proponents claim. So judges and legal professionals are encouraged to examine alienation testimony with renewed caution. Another major implication is that the present finding shows that parental denigration is an important form of conflict that needs further study. Empirically, we envision research on children's of different ages, parents involved in litigation and other conflict-ridden circumstances, in various efforts to operationalize denigration in addition to the PDS. Conceptually, the present findings on the relationship between parental denigration and both parent-child closeness and individual well-being generally consistent with Cummings' emotional security hypothesis, which states that maintaining a sense of protection, safety, and security is a central goal for children in family settings, including contexts of marital conflict. A final implication is that children do not have to directly observe parental disputes to be affected by them. Broader family systems concepts are needed to understand more completely how children are affected by parental disputes. Children feel angry, torn, and confused when their parents are in dispute. The reasons for this are not easily explained by modeling inconsistent discipline or even by the emotional insecurity. These all may be important contributors, but conflict is also distressing because children love both their parents. It is painful for the children to hear negative things about either parent, and the implicit push to align with one or the other parent disrupts the homeostatic balance in children's family relationships. The resulting confusion and pain can lead children to withdraw from one or both parents, particularly the parent who is trying to undermine family relationships. Thinking of parental denigration and parental conflict more systematically should aid future research and help mediators, parent educators, and therapists to intervene more effectively. Now remember, this is they just pulled the data from the adults, not the actual children. Anyway, you can't trust the testimony of children or how they respond in surveys anyway. So, the children are only until 17 or until 18, and then you have the rest of their life, statistically speaking. Limitations and strength. Yeah. Okay, the use of young adults retrospective reports is both a limitation and strength. Retrospective reports may be flawed as a result of gaps or biases in memory. However, the ultimate goal is to assess how children perceive their parents, and young adults' reflections are of a considerable interest in this regard. Young adults are not too far removed from their childhood, but they live apart from their parents and should be in a better position than younger children to reflect on and report troubling childhood experiences, such as hearing their parents denigrating one another. Still, studies of younger children and other efforts to assess parental denigration can be foreseen and are needed. I mean, for the parents who've been alienated or, you have to walk away, it's kind of moot because, what are you going to do about it? The present study also had a number of strengths, including a large sample as standard, and then they pat themselves on the back. So I think this is, generally, this is good information. And with this data, you can be statistically feel generally statistically comfortable that the odds are in your favor. Right here. This is it. 6, 7, and 8. There is very little correlation. The more denigration she has towards you as the father does not, in the end, when they're adults, seem to affect their attachment, involvement, and closeness. So you need to focus on yourself, make yourself a better man, make yourself a more attractive human being. That has more relevance, and just ignore her denigration. Haters gonna hate, and it's only going to hurt her own relationship, especially as your life gets markedly better and she gets more embittered and more negative. Obviously, it's going to backfire. All right. Well, I hope that gives you hope. I hope that equips you to become better human beings and to forgive and move on with your life and make more beautiful babies. All right. God bless you. Bye-bye.